What's good, y'all? Time for a DL short. So, by now everyone's heard of the polls that came out that shows Trump doing really well in swing states against Biden in the upcoming election. This is really bad news, disheartening news for the Democrats. You know, of course, they're worried about it. They say they're not, but we know they are. And there are even now some Democrats coming out and want to challenge Joe Biden, as they should. Most Americans think Joe Biden is just too old, doesn't have the stamina to be president for another 4 years. Um, it is what it is. But the shocking news is that RFK Jr. has also done really well in these same swing states. And if it's a three-way race, RFK Jr. right now is polling extremely well. So I was watching Breaker and Points were actually counterpoints, and they were discussing this. And bro, it is a fascinating conversation. Seriously. What does it mean for the election if RFK Jr. is a third viable candidate? Well, let's get into it. Let's check it out. Again, this is Counterpoints. This is on the Breaking Points with Sagar and Crystal. This is on their YouTube channel. It's actually a sister show, companion show, and it's really good. It's the same thing. It's also in the political vein, and they just break down some really good stuff. So let's check this out.
Ryan, speaking of that sort of two-party
Mhm.
consensus and the two-party norm being broken, this is stunning. And Sagar's the first person I actually saw pick up on this.
Everybody actually read the poll that the New York Times did.
He decided to dig into the crosstabs, and everybody was talking about the Times Siena poll. It was rattling through the Beltway. Just everyone was focused on the numbers of Biden hemorrhaging support from Black voters, for example, and him being down in all of these swing states. Sagar looks at this, and we can put the first element up on the screen, and realizes it says something fascinating about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s bid for the presidency. This New York Times poll found him running at really tight margins.
Yeah, the top line has him, I don't have it in front of me, it was 35 for Trump, 33 for Biden, was it 24?
Yeah.
So
That's
to repeat, in case you think that you misheard me.
Yeah.
This is in 6 battleground states.
Yeah.
Trump at 35%, Biden at 33%, which is closer to Trump than Biden was without Kennedy in. And with Kennedy in, he was pulling 24% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
That is higher than Ross Perot ever polled.
Yep, Sagar pointed that out. He never broke the 20% threshold in polling.
So right there, 24%. That's an insanely high number. We're a year out from the election. RFK Jr. isn't working with a whole lot of money, but he's, he has that name recognition, you know what I mean? Like, he's a Kennedy. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I pretty much wrote him off initially. I'm like, I'm not taking this guy serious. My thing is like, man, we just, can't really see Trump getting office again. You got to vote for Biden. I'm not crazy about Biden. I think he's too old. He did his job. He was a guy who could beat Trump the last time, mission accomplished. He should ride off into the sunset, and they should have someone else come out, because in those polls, it said that Trump loses to any Democrat, just any random Democrat. Like, Trump polls, he comes in behind any random Democrat, and even Kamala Harris is within a couple points of Trump. So it's just, people aren't okay with Joe Biden and his age right now. And just, they were never crazy about him to begin with. He did his job. He was a guy who could beat Trump. So I never took RFK serious. I just didn't. And I didn't know anything about him. I didn't do any real research. The only thing I saw out there were a couple clips of him talking conspiracy theories and talking about some other stuff that I thought was kind of out there. And I'm like, all right, dude's not going to really do anything. Then you look at these polls, 24%, and he doesn't even have a running mate. 24%, he doesn't even have the money set aside to get on all the ballots for the rest of the country. That he just based on polling and what's going on in these swing states. This is real right here. Like, I've always hoped that America would get a third party. You would like to have more than just the two choices that because we have a two-party system here now. Of course, RFK Jr. would be running as an independent. He hasn't started a party or anything like that, but it's a third choice, and they were talking about Ross Perot. That was a long time ago. I was a kid, but I remember Ross Perot. And George H.W. Bush is on video, on the record saying Ross Perot is the reason he lost to Bill Clinton. So let's continue.
I feel like I remember him breaking it before. Perot did this bizarre thing where he was doing extremely well, and then he dropped out because he said that like Democrats had threatened his daughter's wedding or something like that.
Sounds right.
And then months later, he jumped back in, and people were like, "Okay, we knew you were a little bit weird, but now we're like really confused."
He ends up with about 19%.
He ended up at 19%, and a lot of people think that helped elect Bill Clinton.
Absolutely, yeah. It's hard to, those numbers are pretty. That's a pretty good case.
Because it's hard to know exactly who they would have gone for, but yeah, I think that's right. Clinton ended up with like 43% of the vote and won the White House. And so you already have RFK Jr. polling higher than Ross Perot kind of ever did. And he's within 9 points of Biden and 11 points of Trump. And if he can get somebody like an Elon Musk, David Sachs, these other tech billionaires that love him, to fund him getting on the ballot across the country.
Costs a lot.
But it's a drop in the bucket for these guys. Then he's on the ballot, and if the polling shows that he's not a spoiler but could actually win, it becomes a wild contest.
Completely.
And I'm no political expert, guys. I'm not in the political field. Back in the 90s, I worked on a couple of campaigns when I was in Cincinnati, waiting to get hired by the FAA. But I am by no stretch of the imagination a political insider. I'm not. I listen, I read, I talk to folks, and I put it through the old think tank and I try to figure it out. This right here is crazy what's going on right now, especially at this point in the race. And like Ryan just mentioned, if RFK Jr. could get some billionaire backing to get his name on the ballot in all 50 states, like, bro, and like you said, if people look at RFK as a viable choice, it absolutely changes the game. He's within 8 and 11 points, of the top two dogs, like the current president, and then the Republican challenger. Trump seems to be the Republican challenger. Again, we're not talking about legal issues or anything like that, just based on this information right here. I mean, that tells me that gives a person a valid third choice. Like, okay, what's going on? That you get a third choice. And I thought about that. I'm like, man, who would I vote for if you got three choices? Right? I'm not voting for Trump. Draft dodger. He's out for himself. He doesn't care about America. And it's cool. I ain't mad at him. That's who he is. You know what I mean? He's that dude is always out for himself. He's that guy to stir it up, get some popping and then disappear and save his own neck. I ain't mad at him. You guys probably hear some noise in the background. Someone's moving. They keep dropping everything. Just people who don't know how to move. They drop all of their furniture as they're moving. I don't understand what people, it's just whatever. But back to what we're talking about here. Joe Biden too old. He's just too old. And I'm not a big fan of Kamala Harris. So a vote for Joe Biden is really a vote for Kamala Harris. I don't see him making through another term. I just don't. I'm not sure if he'll make it to the end of this term without having to step down from the office or whatever for health reasons or not. So a third person, like, okay, RFK, now it's like, I got to look into this guy. What's he really about? So let's continue.
Because when 70% of the country, roughly, is telling you that they do not want a Biden-Trump rematch, and you tell them, too bad, you're getting a Biden-Trump rematch. And then you get a guy named RFK Jr. on the ballot, and then you're told he's actually viable.
Huge name recognition right off the bat, automatically.
100% name recognition, basically.
Yep.
And then you have the combination of the people who voted for Trump in 2016 as a middle finger to the system because they don't like it. They just want to flip it over.
Right.
Do those people go back to Trump, or do those people flip it over again by going RFK Jr. You know,
I mean, he has a good point there. There are a lot of people who voted for Trump because he was the anti-establishment person supposed to drain the swamp and all that kind of stuff. And as we know, that didn't happen. You look at someone like a Joe Biden or whoever the Democrats put up there is going to be an establishment, traditional, professional politician who's going to do whatever the 1% wants them to do. Right. All right, cool. But if you get another choice, like my biggest fear is wasting my vote. Like I don't want to waste my vote on RFK. And by doing that, I kind of that's a vote that goes to Trump. I want to be able, like, I want my vote to go to defeating this guy. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to vote on Biden and Harris, which I'm not crazy about, but we can't have this other dude in the White House again because he might not ever leave. Like he's just on some real, truly insane, diabolical type stuff. Like, man, we don't need that. I really think having Donald Trump in office is bad for the country. And I really think it could bring the country to its knees, if not worse. That's just my personal take on it. Because that dude doesn't care, right? But if you got an opportunity to get someone like RFK, would I vote for RFK Jr.? Man, I don't know, bro. Like, let's say Trump gets indicted and gets sent, not indicted, but gets sentenced. He's already been indicted over 90 times. He's facing over 90 indictments. What if he gets, convicted and sentenced and he, at the state level, he can't be president? And it boils down to Joe Biden and then whoever the Republican is, be it Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, someone like that, and RFK. Then you have to kind of look at it. Then you got to look at it like, well, who's RFK's running mate going to be? I think that'll be huge. Does he go with someone like a Andrew Yang? Does he go with like some maverick like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Like I got to check the laws. I know Schwarzenegger can't be president because he wasn't born in America, but maybe he could be vice president. I don't know. There's like Jesse Ventura. Is he still alive? Does he go and get like a Jesse Ventura type person to run with him? Or does he get a Bernie Sanders to run with him? Right. I mean, it changes the game. Like, well, who is his running mate? And then you really got to look into his platform. And, you got to kind of look into his history, which I haven't done yet. I mean, it really does change the game. Let's continue.
It's wild.
Well, and another thing, this is D2. We can put this up on the screen. That was pointed out. When you look further at these crosstabs, RFK Jr., and this isn't actually really that surprising, but he beats both Trump and Biden among voters under 45 in these 6 swing states. So if you're looking at, again, Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Wisconsin, he is in the lead with voters 18 through 29. So people aged 18 through 29, he has 34% level of support, then a 31% level of support with 30 to 44-year-olds. So from the ages of 18 to 44, those are great numbers. Trump with those 18 to 29-year-olds is at 29%. So he's losing to RFK Jr. by 5 points. Biden is at 30%. So he's losing to RFK Jr. by 4 points with those 18 to 29-year-olds. I mean, again, even in the 30 to 44% range or 30 to 44-year-old range, Trump and Biden are each at 30%. RFK Jr. is at 31%. So he's winning with voters in swing states up to the age of 44 years old.
Yo, that is insane. They got a good point. I can't believe the mainstream media hasn't delved into this even more like they're doing right here. RFK is leading both the current candidates with the young vote from 18 to 40. That's a huge demographic. And again, we're a year out. So as people get to know him and as his message, he gets a platform and RFK Jr.'s message comes out there, he gets a running mate. Will he have that fire that Bernie Sanders had, with the young folks? He's already ahead with the young folks and we barely even get to see this dude. Think about that. I don't see him outside of podcasts. I don't see him. And I'm talking about RFK Jr. Bro, look at that name recognition. He's a Kennedy. Right? You look at what happened to his uncle. You look at what happened to his father. You look at his family. You look at one of his uncles was an establishment cornerstone in the Senate forever. You look at this stuff like he has the pull. He has the network. He has the name. All he has to do is pick the correct running mate and get some billionaire money behind him to get some backing. And we might have a viable third candidate for the first time since Ross Perot. And he's already polling higher than Ross Perot ever did. Crazy.
And the assumption among the consultant class is always that as you get closer to the election, the third party candidate dwindles in support as people realize that they don't have any chance.
Yeah.
So that'll be the key question. Like, when people go to vote, do they think he actually has a chance? And if they think he has zero chance, then a lot of the people who are telling pollsters that they're going to support RFK Jr. as a kind of protest to those pollsters end up saying, well, okay, if it's between Biden or Trump, here's the person that I prefer out of those two. But if they go into the polls thinking that it's actually a live three-way race, who knows what they end up doing. And it is fascinating that he does appear to be pulling more votes from Trump than from Biden. Like, he seems to be a net benefit to Biden unless he beats Biden.
Well, that's the thing I was,
And that's another thing too. I had Players in Demand that hit me up in one of the comments, and it was like, hey, Trump is winning, and you got to do your research and this and that. And I'm like, what I mean? I really didn't think that Trump had a chance. It's with all the indictments and all of the negative press, but I guess they say there's no such thing as bad press. You know what I mean? So I was really shocked to see those numbers, especially in these swing states. But that is a great, that's a great point there, because in that comment, when I sent a comment to brother Players in Demand, I said, hey, when you add RFK Jr. to the mix, it helps Biden's numbers greatly. You know what I mean? And we see that. And to the point where, RFK Jr. might be able to beat Biden. Like if Trump, for whatever reason, can't go the distance because of his legal issues, it's not like RFK Jr. is going to go away. Right. So, Biden has, on the one hand, he's like, RFK Jr. is here. We're going to Ross Perot ourselves into the White House. But it's like, this guy ain't no Ross Perot. Like, this dude he's polling for real. There's a good chance he might be in the 30s. And then you look at those numbers with the younger voters, he is at over 30. He's 31% from 18 to 40. That's a serious voting block right there, guys. Serious voting block. I'm going to fast forward this to 11 minutes and 54 seconds, because they were talking about Palestine and they were talking about JFK Jr.'s stance on that, which is pretty much, lockstep with the Democrats. So, and they were saying that he is real close to the Dems on a lot of policy issues. Why wouldn't he be? Again, you look at his family, you look at his politics. Like, he's not the weirdo that a lot of people have painted him out to be. Like, he's been pretty much working with and or caucusing with Democrats leading up to this point. He's been a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton, for instance, and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure he has a lot of support. I wonder who the big time Democrats would support in a three-way race. Like, would you have Barack Obama coming out saying RFK Jr. is a valid choice? Or would they all stick to the party line and back Joe Biden or whoever the establishment Democrat is? I wonder. But let's watch this last little bit.
Just a middle finger. Like, it's not actually necessarily support for RFK Jr. It's rejection of the two choices being offered. And some of it is genuine support for RFK Jr. because they've heard him on shows. But I think a lot of it is not, because we're still a year away.
But that's much easier to do when you have a name that people recognize and they're comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kennedy, for example.
Cornel West is also running and getting nowhere near that kind of
right.
support.
But when you put together, actually, that's another interesting that people aren't paying attention to. If you put together Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the potential for an anti-Biden candidate to sweep in is so high. And media doesn't even want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about where Marianne is polling in New Hampshire. They don't want to talk about that at all. They're just completely erasing it. They're suddenly very interested in Dean Phillips, who we have no indication, despite having a ton of money, has any popular support. So the fact that, as Saagar pointed out, media didn't pick up on this, that the New York Times had these crosstabs and is looking into, so So anytime you do a poll, I don't know if Intercept ever does polling, but anytime as a news outlet you commission a poll, you are scraping that data and looking so closely for what is newsworthy, what's the hook, what's in it. And the fact that the New York Times had that in front of them, and then every other news outlet had the crosstabs to cover that poll, and nobody picked up on this or covered it until it started going viral on Twitter. It's just like, what a joke.
Hey, if you liked that video,
That tells you a lot right there, doesn't it? Mainstream media had the information. They looked at the information and they decided not to report it. We're just going to sit on it. And if it weren't for X, if it weren't for YouTube, the internet, we wouldn't be talking about it now. We wouldn't be talking about it now. I think Brother Ryan is correct. There will be people out there, Republicans and Democrats. It looks like mostly Republicans, because these votes it seems like the numbers are saying that these votes are coming from the Trump camp. There's people looking for alternatives to Trump as well as alternatives to Biden, but mostly Republicans are going over to the RFK Jr. side. And are they doing it because it's a big, it's a big FU to the system? How dare you give us what we said we didn't want it? No one wanted to see Trump and Biden part 2. No one wanted to see that. But here we are. So like, hey, here's JFK Jr. I'm just going to vote over there. The never Trumpers. There you go. The Republicans who never vote Democrat, now they can vote for RFK Jr. because he's not technically a Democrat. He's running as an independent. And if he puts a Republican on his ticket, right, if he gets an old school Republican to come in and run with him, yeah, you never know what might happen with that ticket. So Republicans go like, oh, I can throw my vote. I don't have to vote for Trump. And I can, in fact, vote against Trump by voting for RFK Jr. That could be a thing, because a lot of people are really frustrated with the way our system is set up right now. And it's like, there's people out there, we don't want Biden involved in this. We didn't want Biden involved last time, but he was the only guy that, they said it could beat Trump. And he was the best of all the other bad decisions out there. And he, at least to his credit, he won. So, man, that's that. That's this short, bro. I don't know. Maybe we are definitely going to be talking about this some more down the road as we get closer to the 2024 elections. This is going to be fun to watch. I ain't gonna lie, this is going to be kind of exciting and fun to watch moving forward. And we'll see how this plays out. Again, Biden might not even be at the top of the ticket. They might ask Biden Harris to step to the side. And then, we'll see what Democrats wind up floating to the top. My money would be on Gavin Newsom, although I'm not crazy about Gavin Newsom. It's just, he has the look, he has the polish, he's done the work. He's a professional politician and he'll have the money behind him. But RFK Jr., he might get that Hollywood money. He might get that, those A-listers who were like, they will say, hey, RFK Jr. is the cool guy. You know what I mean? And you should vote for him because he hasn't been part of the establishment for the past 30, 40 years. And, his family has given so much and placed so much on the altar of freedom in America, the altar of democracy, that, he knows what to do. And we should give him a try. Who knows? What if he gets a celebrity to run with him? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine RFK Jr. and Arnold Schwarzenegger ticket? That would be, again, I don't know if Schwarzenegger could run. I don't know, because we have that requirement in order to be president of the United States, you have to be, born American. Arnold Schwarzenegger is not, but I don't know if that rule holds up for vice president. I don't know. I'm gonna look into it. Let me know what y'all think, man. That's all I got to say for now, bro. This is crazy. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what y'all think, man. Seriously, what is going on with Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., right? RFK Jr. Has he changed the game for real? I think he may. All right. I'm talking to y'all later, man. I'm D.O. St. Peace.